Good afternoon. My name is Miles Horton. I'm one of the original, class of 2015, one of the original leaders of the Divest Williams movement. Whoever's watching this, hope it's going well. Keep up good work. I am here today to talk about the financial case for divestment, but just a word to the wise, it can get a little bit technical, so in the description to this video, I've attached a sort of bullet point summary as well as links to further resources you can use to check this out. The financial case for divestment starts with understanding how our endowment works, and it may seem complicated, but it's actually a pretty simple concept when push comes to shove. Essentially, it's a $2.3 billion, as of 2014, a $2.3 billion pot of money that the college uses to fund operations, salaries, whatever it needs to pay for, that aren't covered by tuition. So tuition covers some amount of the college's expenditures, but not all. And the difference needs to come from somewhere. Here's how it works. When alumni, whoever, parents, other friends of the college donate money, it's put into the endowment. The endowment is then, this big pool of money, is then turned over to the Williams Investment Office in Boston to be invested, which is just another way of saying given over to private sector companies to be turned into more money, or, hopefully turned into more money. The details of investing are complicated, but the idea is essentially this. The endowment's money is used to buy holdings, assets, just a fancy way of saying buying part ownership of different companies, which then they'll take that money, use it in their operations, hopefully turn an even bigger profit in the future, and then give us a little cut off the top. So the basic idea is that a company needs money right now so it can make much more money in the future. For example, say I'm Miles Donuts Incorporated. I make donuts, and I have stores all around America, and, we're turning a profit, and it's good. But, oh, sorry, my dog is barking there. We need to open a new donut store and we don't quite have the money. That's where investors like Williams College come in. So let's say I need $500 to buy a new donut machine. But once I have the machine, I can make thousands of dollars a day because I'll be selling donuts. But, that's all sort of moot because I don't have the $500 now that I need. An investor like Williams will say, hey, we're going to, buy in this case it'd be a bond. We're going to buy a bond from you for $500. I take that money, great. Now I make much more money. I give Williams the $500 back. I even give them extra back to compensate them for lending me the money when I needed it, and for the risk that they took on, because there's always a small chance I would never pay them back, right? So that's what you're compensated for. It's pretty straightforward. The two main types of securities, these are the financial assets place like Williams will buy, they're called securities, are stocks and bonds. Stocks are also called equity. It's essentially a portion of a company. For example, if I buy one stock in Google, I'm now a part owner of the Google company. Kind of amazing, king of the world. But you, as a part owner, you're entitled to part of the profits. So when the stock goes up, makes extra money, you're now richer because the company is richer. When the stock goes down, the company is doing poorly, you're now poorer as owner, or in this case, partial owner of that company. Companies that, issue equity that are owned by stockholders in this way are called publicly traded companies. Traded among the public on the stock market, on the stock exchange. This is sort of contrasted with companies like, hey, not right now, baby. Sorry, this is my dog. I can pick her up and show you if you like. This is sort of contrasted with companies like Hobby Lobby, for example, was recently in the news for that Supreme Court case, that are just owned by a small group of people, or even one person, maybe a family, a couple business partners, something like that. Don't issue stock, aren't publicly owned. The other kind, bonds, also called fixed income securities, are a similar idea. It basically goes like this. Let's say I'm a municipality that needs to build a new sewage treatment plant. But I don't have the money to do it right now. But once I do it, I know we'll save money because our old one is inefficient or whatever. So, we'll have the money to pay for it later, but we need to build the new one to have that money. I'll issue a bond. Let's say, the cost could be millions of dollars, but each bond will be worth $1,000. And let's say there's a $50 coupon rate, and it's a 10-year bond. Okay, Williams College, the investor, gives me $1,000, and I start building the thing. Now, for 10 years, 10-year bond, remember, every year I have to give Williams $50 because of that $50 coupon rate. Then at the end of the 10th year, I give them $50 and I give them their original $1,000 back. So that's how it makes money. In a lot of ways, it's similar to the idea of equity. Anyway, you can see how the investments are generating returns, profits like this, at least theoretically, hopefully they are, that are then used to pay for the expenses of the college. Now, it's important to point out that $2.3 billion, that is never touched. That's never taken out of to pay for the college, because if it was, we'd whittle it down and pretty soon we'd be at nothing. It's only the extra money, the profit, the returns from our investments that are skimmed off every year to pay for the college. And some of those returns are even reinvested back into the endowment, added to that $2.3 billion pile to make it grow bigger and bigger so it can generate even more returns over time. So that's one way the endowment grows, alongside donations. Now, how to choose which investments to buy, right? I mean, anyone who's tried playing the stock market knows this can be sort of a tricky game to play. 3% of the endowment is invested directly by the investment office. They say, hey, we think Google is going to do well this year, whatever, buy Google. The other 97% is turned over to what are called fund managers. Groups like mutual funds, hedge funds, revolving funds, what have you, that are basically companies full of what are called securities analysts, people who analyze securities and how they think they'll do. Experts in financial markets who, we go to them and we say, we need to make this much this year with this much risk, whatever. And they say, great, we'll buy the assets based on your investment strategy for you. We're the experts. This is, Viking Capital, T. Rowe Price. It's the same concept as retirees investing their pensions in somewhere like Fidelity, right? Letting the experts handle it. That's 97% of the endowment, like I mentioned. Now, the college wants to keep our investment strategies secret so other colleges don't copy us, I guess. And as a result, we don't know how much in the endowment really is invested in the fossil fuel industry. However, looking at comparable endowments and kind of the economy as a whole, we can guess that maybe 5% or so of the endowment is invested in oil, coal, and natural gas. Probably less coal these days because that's, with all the new regulations, coal's on its way out. People know it's a bad investment. It's not. The coal industry is not going to grow and thrive and turn a great profit anytime soon. But, maybe 5% of the endowment is invested in fossil fuels. The other point just worth mentioning is right now the endowment's worth $2.3 billion about. But soon the college will, well, really already as of the end of 2014 here, soon the college will embark on this capital campaign in the sense of a drive, a push, like a political campaign. Capital meaning just money here. College is going to embark on this capital campaign to raise another $700 million, bringing us to a full $3 billion. It's obviously, the economy is in this place right now where, excuse me, voice cracking, in this place right now where the financial markets are doing very well, even as the real economy kind of suffers. College is looking to tap into some of that and beef up our endowment, coming out of the recession strong. So now that we understand the endowment, I think it's time to tackle a couple of common sort of myths surrounding divestment and how to respond to them. One is, won't divestment cost a lot of money? And the answer is really no, and there's a few reasons why. First of all, there's no reason it necessarily should cost a lot of money. All that divestment really means is taking a small slice of our endowment, say that's, 5%, like we talked about before, taking it out of the companies it's currently investing in, and putting it back into all the tens of thousands of other companies that we hold, right? When it's such a small chunk, there's no reason we can't find other companies. Say we have something in Duke Energy. There's no reason we can't find another company in a different sector, like say pharmaceutical, that has a similar risk-return profile to Duke Energy, and just put that back in. ultimately, the more we divest from, the more our investment strategy becomes distorted because our options are more and more limited. But when we're talking about something in the range of 5%, that's not really an issue. Backing that up, all theoretical research, you can look at studies by Aperio Consulting, Cambridge Associates, the Green Century Fund pop to mind, suggests that, like I sort of explained, the cost really won't be too high. And we've seen that carry out, right? Institutions that have divested from fossil fuels, everything from, Hampshire College's minute endowment, all the way to the city of Seattle's $16 billion pension plan. None of them have sustained serious or even noticeable losses. More on this below. And lastly, it's worth pointing out that we are about to raise another $700 million to add to our already immense endowment. If we're going to have a conversation about what our priorities are with the endowment, where we want that money to go, there's really no time like the present, like the next 5 years, where we will be raising these titanic sums. Now, a little sidebar here. Whenever the cost of divestment is brought up, people always say, I just don't want to hurt the financial aid. Which always struck me as a bit of an odd argument, actually. First of all, because as we discussed, divestment will not cost really much money at all. Second of all, it's worth pointing out that I think most of the students in the divestment movement, myself included, are on financial aid. I think it's because we often do come from this place of not being, not sort of being from communities that traditionally go to Williams, not being entirely enamored of the kind of reification of Williams as it is. I think we do see the potential for change and improvement oftentimes. And for whatever reason, most of the students in Divest Williams are on financial aid. So I think there's that. I think whereas the people who make this argument rarely are, frankly. It's also worth pointing out, when I was a freshman, it was right at the height of the financial crisis, or the sort of recession following the financial crisis. This would have been fall of 2010. And President Adam Falk, came to my entry, and somebody asked him a question about the crisis, and he said, we're so proud that despite all the losses our endowment has sustained, obviously at that time financial markets were way down, despite all the losses our endowment has sustained, we didn't have to fire anybody, and we didn't cut financial aid. And I just thought that was such a great reflection of what our priorities have been and can be as an institution. This idea that, we have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a new football stadium, but somehow financial aid is implied to be the first thing that's going to face the knife. It's just not a fair way of framing the discussion, I think. Now, the football stadium, people will then say, oh, but we need the football stadium to raise even more money, to which I would point out, co-education and then abolishing fraternities were subjected to the same kind of criticisms, and we saw how that turned out, which was very well, I think. You can go back and forth forever, but these are just some tools to arm you against the critique that divestment will somehow be ludicrously expensive, which again, the costs will be marginal at most. Another common argument you hear is, won't our fund managers drop us if we ask them to divest? Probably not. We can't be as clear-cut about this one, but probably not, and here's why. So the argument basically goes like, if we tell, Viking Capital or whoever we're invested in to divest from fossil fuels, they'll just say, that sounds really complicated. You're one of many clients. We don't need your business. Then we'd have to invest our entire endowment ourselves. This is actually a personal favorite of Adam Falk's. Then we'll have to invest our entire endowment ourselves, hire this whole, army of people at the investment office to do this, investment experts, security analysts. That'll cost a lot of money. It'll be, troublesome and problematic. Again, though, this seems unlikely. You look at prior experience of institutions divesting from tobacco, from apartheid South Africa. All the fund managers need to do is simply create a separate pool of their, of the assets they offer, simply without the fossil fuels, or swapping in something else for the fossil fuels. It's a pretty straightforward process. Williams itself has divested from Sudan, which seems to cast doubt on this idea that divestment is logistically impossible. And, many of our peer institutions have divested from fossil fuels and not run into this problem. Now, admittedly, most of them, Unity College, for example, Unity College's endowment is so small that they don't really use fund managers on the scale that we do. So it's not a clear analogy. Stanford relies on fund managers, but they only divested from coal, which is, as I mentioned, already a terrible investment. So it may have been easier for them to just say take out the coal, and they say, well, we were going to do that anyway. But many religious groups have endowments comparable to Williams's, multi-billion-dollar endowments. Many of them have actually divested and just not run into this problem. So this is a common objection. It's a way to use something that we can't totally disprove because it is about the future to cast doubt on divestment, but it's really not an argument that holds water. One other financial element of divestment that's worth understanding, and I've included a link to more information about it below, is the concept of stranded assets. The idea that stock in, say, I'll just stick to oil here, stock in oil companies is overvalued because, well, here's the basic argument. The stock is valued based on how much oil is in their reserves, right? How much product are they going to be able to produce? The problem is, by the time we get to that last drop of oil in ExxonMobil's reserves, by the time they burn all that, the Earth won't be able to support industrial civilization. We'll just have seen unbelievably catastrophic climate change. So that last drop is probably never going to be extracted. So we're valuing their stock based on all the oil in their reserves, but we got to recognize that some of that is going to stay in the ground permanently. So the stock is overvalued, right? That last drop of oil is what's called a stranded asset, an asset that's incorporated into the valuation, but wrongly, because it's never going to be turned into a profit, into a usable product. You see stranded assets all across the economy, but this is how it works here. This is a bit of a tricky argument to make, though, because it's worth pointing out we often don't buy assets based on how much they'll be worth in 1,000 years, right? We buy them based on whether we think the price will go up by tomorrow, and we can resell them for a tiny profit. So in a lot of ways, the stock market especially depends on not so much the underlying value of a company and the products it makes, but what other investors think that what other investors are valuing it at, and how much we can, buy and sell and turn a quick profit. So I've included a little article about that too. It's called the Keynesian Beauty Contest. But it's worth being familiar with the stranded assets argument regardless. A few last points. One is just that it's important to understand, with something like apartheid, divesting from South Africa really did force a lot of major multinational corporations to pull out of apartheid South Africa, and did really cripple their economy. Fossil fuel companies, it's not the same. Divestment from fossil fuels is purely symbolic. That's because fossil fuel companies don't rely on investment capital the way normal companies do. When they need more money, they just dig it up out of the ground. Again, when Miles Donuts Incorporated needs more money, I have to somehow make more donuts, and that may require buying a new donut machine, and that may require investors. When ConocoPhillips needs more money, they just double the production of oil. It's quite straightforward. The investment is just a little cherry on top to help them make a little extra profit. But they really can dig money out of the ground. It seems too good to be true. So our investments, our divestment from them, I should say, is really just a symbolic protest. But in that is an incredibly powerful statement, and I think that's why we're all here. One other argument you'll hear is that fossil fuel companies invest heavily in renewable energy themselves. So, why boycott them when they're actually one of the sort of leading centers of renewable research? Be that as it may, for every $1 million they spend researching solar panels, they spend billions a year promoting misinformation, advocating for laws, both at the national and at the state level, preventing alternative energy sources from gaining traction. Just this past election cycle, they funded the successful referendum in Arizona that would prevent people from putting solar panels on their roofs. Unbelievable, right? But, as much as fossil fuel companies do dabble in all sectors of the energy world, they really are the problem here. Let's not delude ourselves. A corollary argument is that by remaining stockholders, partial owners in the fossil fuel industry, we can exert influence over them to change their practices. At the board meeting, when all the stockholders are there, we can say, hey, please be more eco-friendly. I think that's a little naive to say that Williams College is a tiny part owner of, Texaco. We'll just walk in and say, hey, this thing you've been doing where you dig up fossil fuels and it makes you trillions of dollars and you've been doing that for 100 years and it's the most successful business model on the planet. Maybe you shouldn't do that and you should do this other thing because it's good. It just doesn't carry water. We're not going to affect them on the margins. Global warming is a do or die crisis. We can't afford to wait 100 years to slowly chip away at making Petrobras more eco-friendly. Last but not least, it's worth pointing out that renewable energy, on the flip side, remember how we talked about fossil fuel companies don't really need our money. Renewable energy really does. It suffers from severe underinvestment for a variety of reasons. But, if every college in America took the money they have in fossil fuels right now, it's probably in the range of $400 billion. Put that all into alternative energy companies, we could see a revolution in the way energy is done in this country. And, that's what we're standing up for. Real difference. It's exciting, it's invigorating, and good luck. Like I've mentioned, I've attached comments in the description below.